You were never allowed to be angry. Not really, not fully, not in a way that anyone around you could tolerate. Someone shut it down the moment it appeared. The room went cold. The love got withdrawn. You were talked over, dismissed, or met with an anger so much bigger than yours that yours simply had no room to exist. And so, you did the only thing a child can do in that situation. You learned to make it invisible. If something in your chest just tightened reading that, stay with me. Because what was taken from you when they silenced your anger was not just a feeling. It was something far more fundamental. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what and why reclaiming it might change everything. There is one emotion that never gets a fair seat at the table. Sadness has been welcomed into the room. Anxiety has entire shelves of books written about it. Grief has rituals, ceremonies, people who sit with you in the dark. These feelings have been given language, space, and permission. Anger has not. Anger makes people shift in their seats. It disrupts the comfortable story that everything is fine. It is loud where we are taught to be quiet, large where we are taught to be small, honest where we are taught to be polite. And for a child growing up in a home where anger was treated as a threat, whether because a parent couldn't handle it, or feared it, or used their own anger as a weapon while yours was never permitted, the message arrived early, and it arrived clearly. Your anger is not welcome here, not because the feeling stopped existing, but because the child learned, very young, that feeling it was simply not safe. Picture this. You come home from school. Something happened, someone was unfair, something hurt, you felt wronged in a way that was completely real and completely valid. But the moment that feeling reached the surface, the moment your voice got louder or your face changed, everything shifted. The parent who should have said, "Tell me what happened," said something else entirely, or they dissolved into their own emotions, and suddenly you were the one causing harm, the one who needed to apologize, the one managing the mood of the adult who was supposed to be managing yours. Or the atmosphere in the house changed so quickly, so completely, that your body registered the lesson before your mind even had words for it. My anger is dangerous. My anger cost me safety. My anger cost me love. So you swallowed it every time, without being taught how, without anyone explaining what to do with a feeling that has nowhere to go. You just pushed it down and got very good at it. Here is what nobody tells you about a feeling that has been swallowed for years. It does not dissolve. It does not quietly disappear into the dark where you put it. Emotional suppression doesn't work like that. The feeling doesn't leave. It transforms. It goes underground and becomes something else entirely. Something harder to recognize, harder to name, and in many ways, much harder to treat. It shows up in your adult life in ways you would never think to connect back. Back to that child standing in the kitchen, being told to calm down, learning that their insides were too inconvenient for the people around them. The first thing suppressed anger becomes is anxiety. When anger has no healthy exit, the nervous system doesn't simply power down. The charge is still there, the heat, the urgency, the activation that the emotion was trying to complete. With nowhere safe to go, it turns inward and becomes a permanent low-level alarm. Always slightly on edge, always waiting for something to go wrong, always scanning the room for danger that isn't there anymore. Not because something is wrong with you, but because your body learned to hold an enormous amount of charge, with nowhere to put it, and that charge never fully discharged. It just stayed, and became the background noise of your entire life. The second thing suppressed anger becomes is depression. There is an idea in psychology that has held up remarkably well over time. Depression is anger turned inward. When you cannot direct your anger at the thing that hurt you, you direct it at yourself instead. You become your own target. This looks like relentless self-criticism, like believing you are the problem in every situation, like lying awake cataloging everything you did wrong, like a voice in your head that is harsh, cold, and never satisfied. A voice that sounds a lot like the person who told you your anger was too much. You took their verdict. and made it your own internal judge, and that judge has been sentencing you ever since. The third thing suppressed anger becomes is people-pleasing. When a child learns that their negative emotions cause rupture, that anger in particular withdraws love or creates danger, they develop a very logical survival strategy. Keep everyone around you happy at all costs. Anticipate needs before they become problems. Smooth things over before they become conflict. Never be the source of anyone's discomfort. Become so agreeable, so easy, so low maintenance, that there is simply no reason for anyone to be upset with you. This feels like kindness from the inside. It looks like kindness from the outside, but underneath it, there is a terrified child, monitoring every room for signs of danger, working constantly to prevent a storm that no longer exists. The fourth thing suppressed anger becomes is physical. The body keeps the score. This is not a metaphor. Chronic suppression of anger has been linked in research to higher rates of chronic pain, to autoimmune conditions, to persistent headaches, to a stomach that is always slightly tight, to shoulders that never fully drop, to a jaw that holds tension even in sleep. Your body has been storing what your childhood home would not let you say, in the muscles, in the bones, in the breath that never goes all the way down. Now here is the part that most people never hear. Anger is not the enemy. Anger is information. In its healthy form, anger is the emotion that tells you something is wrong, that a boundary has been crossed, that you are being treated in a way that does not match your worth, that something needs to change. Anger is the feeling that comes just before every act of self-protection, every boundary, every no, every moment of standing up for yourself. Children who are allowed to feel anger grow into adults who know what they will and will not accept, who can say, "That hurt me," without apologizing for having been hurt. Children who are not grow into adults who cannot feel where their own edges are, who say yes when they mean no, who give and give until there is nothing left, and still feel guilty for having needs at all. But here is the twist. The anger did not go away. It never left. It has been there all along, waiting, and sometimes it escapes sideways, in a reaction that seems too big for the moment that triggered it, in a sudden coldness you cannot explain even to yourself, in a slow resentment that builds towards someone you genuinely love, in the way you go completely silent when something hurts. Instead of simply saying so, that is not you being broken or irrational. That is the anger finding the only exits it was ever shown. So what do you actually do with this? The first step is the hardest one. You have to give the anger permission to exist, not to act on it blindly, not to aim it at people who don't deserve it, but to feel it, fully and consciously, without immediately making it smaller, without rushing to make it more comfortable for everyone else. To simply say, "I am angry, and I am allowed to be," for someone who was never permitted to feel this. That sentence alone can be revolutionary. The second step is learning to listen to what the anger is actually telling you. Anger always has a message. It is pointing at something, a situation, a pattern, a relationship that is costing you something important. When you stop suppressing it long enough to hear it, you will find that your anger is not irrational. It is loyal. It has been trying to protect you all along. The third step is finding safe ways to let the cycle complete. Movement, expression, honest conversation, creative work, therapy, writing it down. The goal is not to perform anger for an audience. It is to let the charge that has been stored in your body finally move through and out. Your body has been waiting a long time for this. You were taught that your anger made you difficult, dangerous, too much to be around. But a child who is never allowed to be angry becomes an adult who cannot protect themselves, who cannot say no, who cannot feel where they end and everyone else begins. Your anger was never the problem. The problem was that no one around you was safe enough to hold it with you. You are allowed to be angry about that too. And slowly, gently, you are allowed to start letting it out. You always were. Once a day, find one moment to ask, What am I actually feeling right now? And is there anger underneath it? When you feel yourself going cold or silent, pause and ask, what am I not letting myself say right now? Your anger was not too much. It was just never given enough space. The end. Subscribe, please.